how do you choose a good dairy goat? This is a good dairy goat. This one is not. Why? What's the difference? So you're looking to add dairy goats to your homestead, and maybe you've done a ton of research on them, but you really don't know what a good dairy goat looks like. I have hay in my hoodie. I'm gonna show you what my experience is in choosing dairy goats and how to avoid some of the same mistakes that I made. So hopefully you can do it right the first time and have a better experience than I did, and a better experience than a lot of new homesteaders do. I am not going to go into goat health and raising goats in this video, but I do have another video on this channel that talks about that. Today is all about selecting the right goat for you, but I will link the other video in the description box because I go over a lot of really important stuff that a lot of people don't know and everybody should know. And since I don't show goats, I don't know anything about that. I'm not going to be talking about that in here at all. The information that is in here is for the family that is looking to add a goat to their homestead so they can get a good supply of milk. So I'll talk about the breed and what to look for in each goat, all that stuff. So we'll start with breed because that's probably one of the biggest questions that we get. You're probably already wondering what breed of goat to get, so I will start there. Nigerian Dwarf. The Nigerian Dwarf is one of the most popular dairy goats in my area, at least. It seems like everybody that has goats has Nigerian Dwarfs or something mixed with Nigerian Dwarfs. These are smaller goats. They're easy to find, they're easy to handle. They eat a little bit less hay because they're smaller. However, they do make a little less milk than some of your larger breeds, but their milk is really high in butterfat and it's really, really good. I have Nigerian Dwarfs, but in my experience, they're also the goats that have the flying genes. I mean, my girls will go over any and all fences like it's nothing. At least two of them do. I call them the Queens of Chaos. My other goats don't do this. They're a lot easier to contain. This could just be my personal experience because I know on the Homestead YouTube channel, he says that his Nubians are the ones that escape. And I love that channel, but I'm gonna take that with a little grain of salt because I know how he feels about goats to begin with. They aren't his thing. He doesn't like raising goats. A Nigerian Dwarf is going to make about half a gallon of milk each day. So you have a Nubian. My favorite goat is my Nubian. And I actually got her from a sale barn auction a few years ago. She was my second goat ever. I don't recommend getting a goat from a sale barn or an auction, by the way, but I didn't know any better and I lucked out. I'll talk about sale barns more in a minute. Nubians are going to make about a gallon of milk a day. Now, those are the two goats that I have, the two breeds of goats that I have. You also have Alpines, Sannans, Toggenburgs, La Manchas, Oberhalsi, and Golden Guernseys. I've had a Toggenburg before. She was an amazing milker. Probably my favorite milker. I've also had a Guernsey, and I would never get a Golden Guernsey for milking again. She had so much hair, and since I hand milked, that was a pain in the butt, and she wasn't easy to handle. Like, she did acrobatics on the stand. Anytime you have something that's called a mini something, they're usually mixed with a Nigerian Dwarf. For example, Toasty, her mom was my Guernsey, so she's a mini Golden Guernsey. Her dad was a Nigerian Dwarf. Her mom was a Golden Guernsey. If you are looking for high milk production, you might want to go with a Sannyan, or an Alpine. If you're looking for high butter fat, especially if you're making like cheese, you probably want to go with like a Nubian or a Nigerian Dwarf. Honestly though, any of these goats are probably going to give you so much milk. I know I don't go through a half a gallon of milk a day, even with making all the stuff that I milk with it. Whenever my fridge gets like crazy filled, I feed some to my pigs, freeze it for soap making, or make yogurt. That's been my really big thing lately, is making yogurt. It goes so fast in our house, everybody loves it, and it's so much better than the store-bought stuff. I do have another video here with my favorite goat milk yogurt making thing, and it's not a cheesecloth, so I would, check that out when you're done here. Someone that's trying to sell a meat goat that is in milk might try to talk you into it as a milk goat because it's in milk, but unless it's crossed with a dairy goat, wouldn't recommend this. They're not bred for milking, so you're going to have less milk, decreased milk quality, they're not going to milk as long, and it's going to cost you way more in feed to get a lot less milk. So I would not recommend getting a meat goat, even if it is in milk. So what breed do you have? What breed do you have? What breed do you want to get? Let me know in the comments. So you've got your breed chosen. Now you got to find a good goat that's in milk. Just because it's a Nigerian Dwarf, for the record, does not mean it's going to be a good milk goat. The first thing that you want to look for is a socialized goat. So you're gonna find some people selling their goats as milk goats, and they're selling them because they're impossible to milk. People will breed their goats, then just leave it out in the pasture. It has their baby, it's not used to human contact, it comes time to milk it, and it's not gonna let you touch it. This turns into a goat that does acrobatics on the milk stand. Let me tell you, that is not fun to deal with, especially if it's your first time having a milk goat. So my first milk goat was not only that long-haired Guernsey, but she was also super skittish and would literally try to do backflips to avoid being milked. We tried everything we could to get her to milk, but we decided that it wasn't worth it and we sold her. So I was one of those people, not saying that they can't be trained, but you don't want that for your first one. You don't want to deal with this, especially if it's your first time and you need to learn how to milk a goat. So I would recommend personally finding a goat that's used to being milked and will stand for you nicely. This is going to make your life a whole lot easier and make it so much more enjoyable of an experience. Trying to wrestle a goat while you figure out how to milk her is not fun. Don't do it. I mean, do it if you want, but it's not fun. A first freshener is a goat that just had kids and is in milk for the first time ever. If you get a first freshener, she's probably going to have a lower milk yield, and she's not going to be used to milking yet. So this isn't true for all goats. My auction Nubian is a first freshener, and her yield is lower than it will be the next time she kids, but she stands so nicely for me. I don't even have to use a milk stand. I could pull her right out here and milk her right out here. And I have milked her in the yard before. I think a lot of this has to do with once I got her, I knew I was going to be milking her, so I did a lot of having her stand on the milk stand, kind of like ghost milking, like just touching her. Yeah, so I kind of like trained her and got her used to it. As far as the age of goats, you don't want to get a goat that's too old. I've seen people selling their goats in milk that were overbred, overmilked, and they just needed to be retired. You are making an investment, so take that into consideration when you buy your goat. If the price is right, an 8-year-old milk goat might be okay for you, but I wouldn't be spending that same amount of money on an 8-year-old as I would on a 2-year-old. Milking history. If you have a goat that isn't a first freshener or already in milk and her kids are weaned, you can ask how much milk they get from her a day. If not, you can ask about her family tree or her lineage. Like, how much milk did her mom give a day? Her mom's mom. If during this you find out that your goat has some milk stars in her family tree, you might just be getting a really good milker, an amazing milker. A milk star is given to a goat who exceeds standards. These goats are usually going to be a lot more expensive, and the stars are given by the ADGA. They do require a testing to verify, so most breeders will not have milk stars in their lineup. Where to get your goat from? Sometimes it is hard to find good dairy goats. It's going to depend on the time of the year as well. You're more likely to find a goat in milk during the spring and summer months because they usually kid in the spring. The fall is when breeding starts, so a lot of goats haven't been bred yet, and they might be being dried up so they can be bred, or they haven't been consistently milked after the babies wean themselves, so they are no longer producing milk. Whereas in the spring, a lot of breeders will breed their goats and they're producing the milk, and they pull their kids and bottle feed their kids. So it's a lot easier to find a good dairy goat in the spring. The best place to find a goat in milk would be a reputable breeder. They're gonna have clean herds, and they're breeding to get the best qualities that they can. You will be able to find goats on Facebook livestock groups, Craigslist, the auction, a Google search for goat breeders around you. There are a few precautionary things to know. First of all, when you are buying an animal from someone online, do not ever give them money to hold an animal. Honestly, this goes for anything on Craigslist or Facebook or whatever. There's so many scams out there. You need to be aware of them. If it feels wrong, it's probably wrong. Don't fall victim to these scams. It's the best practice. You don't hand over the money until you are handed the goat. Be careful buying from the auction. When I started my goat herd, I started with auction goats, but I now know things that I didn't know then. So the auction is filled with goats that other people don't want for whatever reasons. They might be old. I saw a goat and milk there that was brought in by the Amish, and they said she was 15 years old. They might be sick. They might have undesirable qualities like double teats or poor body condition. And even if they're not sick, they might get sick by the goat that's next to them. So they came in there healthy and they leave with you sick. It's not to say that you can't find a goat that you love there. I got Flops, my Nubian, from the auction. She was one of my first goats. I got her as a kid. I fell in love with her because I got her when she was a kid. I fell in love with her because she was jumping up to see me, like jumping over the thing. She was so friendly. Now that I've bred her, she's the easiest goat to milk. She's got both good and bad qualities in her udder, which I'll talk about in a second, but her disposition makes it so easy to milk her. The friendlier and easier to handle the goat is, the easier they're going to be to milk. Udder quality. There are a few traits you want to look for in your goats. So a few basics. This is an udder. This is a teat. Goats should have 2 teats. Sometimes you're going to see goats with 3 or 4. These are extra teats, and this is not a quality that you want in your goat. Those are usually culls. It might be connected to another teat like this. This is something that is genetic, and you're going to want to breed these out of your herd. Teats should be good size. Small teats are going to be really, really hard to milk, but you also don't want super big teats. This is what they call a blown teat. It's too big, it's stretched out. This can be caused by milking too much, not milking enough, not milking them regularly. It can be caused by not milking them correctly, like if you're being too rough or pulling down on them. And if they have a really heavy udder. You want teats to be placed correctly as well, not too close together and not too far apart. The teat orifice is the little hole that the milk comes out of. You want it to be big enough that when you squeeze the teat, you get a good stream of milk coming out. A smaller orifice is going to make milking take a lot longer. If it's too big, you might find that the milk just drips out, like it just drips out when she's not being milked. By the way, if any of this has been helpful so far, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. I have a whole series of videos like this coming up, so you want to make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. The shape of the udder is important as well. So if you're in the Facebook groups, people are sharing pictures of udders, and you're going to hear a lot about attachments. Oh, those are good attachments, those are bad attachments. This is talking about the udders. A good udder attachment is in the front and the back. The fore udder attachment is in the front of the udder. You want it to be like tight and snug. Most of the time, people are going to be talking about the rear attachments because that's what you can see the easiest. The escutcheon is the part that's like right above the udder. It's either going to make an upside down V shape or an upside down U shape. You want a U shape and you want it to be high. This shows that the goat is most likely going to have good milk production and it's not going to sag over time. If the goat has a weak attachment, there's a high probability that after a while her udder it's going to start sagging. A sagging udder can be bad. They can step on it, it can snag on things, and because it's so low to the ground, there's a higher risk for infection. I know a lot of this is overwhelming. The most important part at the end of the day is that the goat that you're getting is healthy and friendly. If you are looking for a simple dairy goat for your homestead, you want to find one that is going to be easy to handle and easy to milk. You can get your goat home, you're so excited to milk her, only to find out that she doesn't milk well or she won't let you touch her. That's not cool. You don't want to bring her home just to get frustrated and end up selling her, probably for less than you paid for her in the first place. If you are new to goats, make sure that you watch this video next. There's a lot to know and learn, and I talk about all those things to make your life raising goats a lot easier. I didn't know anything when I started. It took years of learning everything I could to make it easier to get to where I am now. So I will see you over here next. Come on, slowpokes. Tripping over goats.